She was just a little girl, innocent, quiet, and weakened by hunger. Everyone in the courtroom was waiting for the decision of a strict judge. But suddenly her fragile voice changed the whole atmosphere. She said something that not only silenced the judge, but also shook the conscience of every person sitting there. This was no ordinary moment. It was the moment that exposed the gap between power and weakness. The question is, how could the words of a hungry child become so powerful that the entire system came to a standstill? This is the secret you need to know. Her life seemed ordinary. She grew up in a small village where poverty knocked on every door, but her dreams were always big. Going to school, reading books, and hoping for a safe future someday. This was her world. Her smile carried innocence, but the emptiness in her stomach often stole that smile away. Hunger was nothing new for her. It was an old, cruel companion that walked with her every single day. At home, the situation was such that even getting 2 meals a day was a blessing. Her mother worked as a laborer, and the girl often returned from school hungry. Yet despite all these hardships, courage still lived in her heart. She held on to her small dreams no matter how harsh the world seemed. But that day, everything was about to change. A day when she had to be in the very place where power and authority played their game, the courtroom. A place where justice was meant to be served, but where justice often lost its way. No one knew that a fragile voice was about to shake that room. This story is not just about a hungry child, but about a silent truth that the world often ignores. And that moment, after it, nothing remained the same. The courtroom was already heavy with tension. In front sat a stern judge, his eyes reflecting the arrogance that comes from years of authority. He looked at people as if their lives depended only on the stroke of his pen, but everyone's attention was on the girl, thin, weak, and standing with hesitation. In her eyes was the emptiness that only days of hunger can create. At first, the room stayed silent. Then whispers began to rise. People looked at one another, wondering why this girl was there. On some faces there was a hint of pity, but on most the same old prejudice, that harsh line which judged people based on their race. The judge turned the papers and asked questions in a cold voice, as if speaking not to a human, but to a burden. The girl answered hesitantly. Her words were few, but behind them lay years of deprivation. Every sentence revealed the truth that the world she lived in had never been fair to her. Some in the room lowered their eyes, perhaps realizing they were witnessing a scene filled not with justice, but with the echoes of injustice. Yet there were also those with mocking smiles on their lips, as if the pain of a hungry child was nothing more than a show to them. The tension grew. Each question became harsher, and each answer weaker. In the judge's words was hidden scorn, as if he saw the girl's poverty as a crime. Then came the moment when the girl softly said, "I am hungry." The entire courtroom fell into silence. For a moment surprise flashed in the judge's eyes, though he quickly tried to hide it. Some shifted uneasily in their seats, some moved their hands in restlessness. That one sentence had pulled out the truth buried within those walls. But the story did not end there. A new expression was now forming on the judge's face. Would he soften? Or would this innocent voice too be crushed under the weight of the system's cruelty? And that was the moment when everything could either change or end forever. The silence in the courtroom had become unbearable. All eyes were on the little girl, whose lips trembled but whose eyes shone with a strange kind of courage. "I am hungry." These words were not just an admission, but an accusation against a system that had crushed humanity under the weight of race and poverty. For a brief moment, softness flickered across the judge's face, but it quickly hardened again, as if he refused to accept that the voice of a weak child could carry more power than his chair. He struck his pen on the desk and announced in a cold tone, as though punishment, not justice, was his duty. The courtroom erupted in unease. Some people whispered in protest, some tried to hide their tears, but most remained silent, as if fear had sealed their tongues. They knew this moment was not only against a child, it was against the very mindset that placed race and power above humanity. The girl's knees began to shake, but she remained standing. Her silence had now become a scream that needed no words. Every pair of eyes asked the same question. Is this really justice? Then suddenly, a piece of paper fell to the ground. Its sound broke the stillness. A small moment, yet it shook every heart in the room. The judge's eyes were fixed on the girl, but even he, sitting on his mighty chair, looked weak for a moment, as if he knew the truth had slipped beyond his control. This was the turning point, when everything stood on the edge of breaking. The mask of justice had slipped, and the rest of the world was left to decide. Would this girl's hunger awaken humanity? Or would this court write yet another story of cruelty? And that question was more terrifying than any answer. As she left the courtroom, the girl was no longer the same. She was still a frail body, but her words had caused an earthquake that changed everyone. Some looked at her with pity, some turned their eyes away, but no one could forget that moment. The judge, still on his chair, had perhaps suffered the greatest defeat. Not the defeat of power, but of failing to hide humanity's weakness. Life did not become easy for the girl. Hunger still walked beside her, poverty still defined her fate. But after that day, she was no longer just a hungry child. She had become a mirror in which society was forced to see its own ugly face. The real question was not what decision the judge gave, or how people in the courtroom reacted. The real question was this: can a system that cannot provide even the basic need, a single meal, to a child, truly deliver justice? This story is not just about what happened inside one courtroom. It is about the streets where children sleep hungry, the schools where dreams are stolen because of race and color, and the roads where the world looks away from innocent faces. The girl's voice left the courtroom and reached those who once thought themselves safe. And it left them with a question: how long will we stay blind? How long will we use race, color, and poverty as excuses to keep humanity starving? This moment reminds us that justice does not live only in law books. It begins in our hearts. If hearts do not change, no court can ever give true justice. And maybe that is the greatest impact of this story. It does not let us stay silent. It forces us to think. It challenges us. Sometimes even the weakest voice becomes the loudest echo. The question is, have we heard that voice? Or are we too part of the silent crowd in that courtroom?